first of two Morton District 709 School Board Candidate Forums. My name is Jim Rule. I'm a Morton resident, and I'm going to be the moderator for the event this evening. When the framers of the Constitution were putting everything together, they had some pretty deep concerns. They really wanted to know how people would use their vote. They wanted to know if they would have an informed electorate. And they didn't know who to let to vote. There was a big question about who should be able to vote. Governor Morris from Pennsylvania, he felt that the landowners should be able to vote. He's the one that had the most at stake, so the landowners should be given the right to vote. George Mason from Virginia disagreed and said, no, if you pay a tax, then you should have the right to vote. And there were many discussions about who would be given this precious right. The bottom line, at issue, what they feared the most was that people would not know who they were voting for, and they would not know anything about the issues. Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton did not get along. They were bitter political enemies back in the day. But they did agree on one thing. When Jefferson made the statement that said, a nation that expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization expects what never was or ever will be. So what was he saying? He was saying that you can't be ignorant of what's going on and have a free society. You have to engage. Their mark of a good citizen was somebody that voted responsibly. So here you all are, some 240 years later, going to listen to the candidates, hear what they have to say. We are becoming an informed electorate. You are becoming responsible voters. And as the founding fathers would say, you are good citizens. So well done. And thank you for being here this evening. We're here to listen to these folks. They are bravely going where most of us would not, and that is to run for an office or a public position. They've agreed to give up their spare time, endure the flack of criticism, and yet steadfastly speak about where they think our community should go. So for that, we thank you. We thank you for your service and your volunteering. We're going to do that. We're going to listen to you in a question and answer forum. Okay, this is not a debate. There'll be no personal attacks. We're going to listen to questions that were generated from the public. It's Morton and Groveland. Okay, now some of these questions were combined for brevity. Some of them were compounded so we could, they said about the same thing. Some of them are verbatim. Some of them we threw out because we didn't have facts to sustain the question or uphold the questions. Okay, so we vetted the questions as best we could to make them fair and in the spirit of the forum. So we'll start the evening with a 2-minute remark. Each of you will be given 2 minutes to make an opening remark. At that point, we'll get into the questions. I'll read a question. Each of you will have 2 minutes to respond to that question. If there's a point of clarification that we need, you'll have 1 minute for that. We have the timelines to keep us on track and to keep anybody from getting up on a soapbox, okay? So that's kind of the order of how things will go. If there's time, and that's a big if, folks, I'm not sure we'll get to it because we have a lot of information to move through. But if there's time, we'll take a few questions from the audience. Now, at the end, each candidate will have 1 minute for closing remarks. So I really got to be starting that by about 8:20, and we have to have this wrapped up by about 8:30. Okay? Any questions on that, on the timelines? All right, Mr. Schmidtgall, you're up, sir.
All right, thank you. Thank you to David and the 912 group for hosting this forum. My name is Jeff Schmidgall. My wife Sarah, she's in the audience there. We grew up together in Morton, and we actually started dating junior year of high school, and we got married after we both graduated from Bradley. We both do have kids. We have 3 kids, and so we have 3 kids, and our first one will be entering kindergarten next year. I'm running for school board because I have a passion for education, a passion for teaching. I love spending time with youth, and I want to see our youth succeed. I have tutored in the Upward Bound program in Peoria. That is for students of lower income families. Had an opportunity to tutor high school students in that program. I've also taught tennis lessons to kids here in Peoria, and also I'm a children's church teacher at my church. Another reason I'm running is I do have some concerns about some of the directions of the school district is going right now. My kids will be in the school district for the next 15, 20 years, and their peers will be in there. So I think it's very important that we maintain academic and financial health of the district. Professionally, I'm a mechanical engineer, and so I know that STEM-related careers are experiencing some good job growth, and so I think it's valuable to have somebody with a mechanical engineering background on the board. Also, I'm a fiscal conservative, and I know it's really popular to say that, and especially in a town like Morton, but I'll share with you just real briefly, since I have less than 30 seconds, about what that means to me. So my wife and I, we have monthly budget meetings. The first 3 times or so were pretty rough, but we got through them. With the exception of our home, if we don't have cash for it, we don't buy it. We believe in giving liberally to our church and other causes, and that's what fiscal conservatism means to me and my wife, and that's what you can expect from me on the board. So, thank you.
Good evening. Welcome. I'm John Applin. I am currently in my 8th year of serving this wonderful community on the school board. My wife and Kim and I have resided in Groveland for 23 years. We're getting ready to celebrate this fall our 25th wedding anniversary. It's kind of flown by. Wonderful lady, tremendous. She's keeps me grounded. I think spouses sometimes are good for that. They build you up and let you know when you're not all that and then some. We're raising 2 children. I don't know as a parent that you ever stop raising your kids. I don't know when it's just like, okay, they're raised, you're out. Daughter Alexandria, junior at Aurora College, that's studying to be a special education student. I have a special needs son that's 19 that I'm very proud of. He will go through the ceremony this May for graduation. Being raised by school teachers, parents that were school teachers, it's always been emphasized to me the importance of education. We have a district that has performed well for many, many years. We need to keep it going that way. And sometimes I don't think we realize when it has gone well for so long, just how you can get that little wiggle in the tire and the next thing you're off the track. Wonderful community, and the many things that are going on in the school are a result of the values and the people of this community. I want to keep it going that way.
First off, I'd like to thank, obviously, the 912 group for hosting this forum during the election. It's important to be here. My name is Tim Taylor. I've been on the board since 2011. Born and raised here in Morton, graduated in 1985. After graduation, I went off to the United States Naval Academy, where I, too, received a Bachelor's of Science in Mechanical Engineering, which I never used. After commissioning in the United States Navy, I went off to flight school, where I learned to fly F-18s, and I was fortunate enough to do that for 10 years. After getting out of the active duty, I joined the reserves and flew for another 10 years, where I retired out of the military about 5 years ago. At that same time, I was hired by American Airlines, and I've been there for 15 years, and I currently fly 767s out of Chicago. Some personal information: I married Christina Taylor, or hair, local Mortonite, graduated in 1988. I have 3 kids, Madeline, who's a sophomore at University of Iowa, who graduated 2 years ago from high school. Son Nicholas, also at University of Iowa, so I'm getting the Hawkeye vote, I hope, is a freshman at Iowa. And then I also have a first grader right now who is at the open house over at Letty Brown. Along with that, I'm also a assistant vice president at Morton Community Bank in the lending department. And along with other community service besides the school board, I'm also on the board of the Morton Baseball Association, a member of Rotary, and I help out with the Morton Community Foundation where my wife is a board member. A couple things as we go forward here. I think it's important, what would I want to know if I were you guys out there is, as you look at the 7 of us, there's not a single professional educator here. None of us have ever taught in a K through 12 classroom. We've never done anything like that. So one of the key things is I ask you not to let us get away with generalizations, ask for specifics, but also to find out where we're getting our information, because that is as key to leadership in handling things is where do you get information and apply it at the school board level.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Bernier, and I thank you for having me here tonight, although I'll say this is not my favorite part of being on the school board or running for the school board. But my background, the real reason I ran initially 4 years ago for the school board was my passion for Morton. I have a deep commitment and love for the community of Morton. I think it's just a great place to live, raise your family, and work. I've been married to my husband Brad for 28 years, and we've lived 27 of those here in Morton. We have 3 boys, Matthew and Michael, both went through Morton High School, graduated, went on to college, have jobs locally, and are living back in the community, not with us. So those are really good things. Our third, Jacob, is out at Iowa State University in Ames, Iowa, and I might not be so lucky getting him back to town, but he's doing well. I received my Bachelor of Finance degree at Illinois State University. I went on, came back to Peoria and worked in the banking industry, received my Master's of Business at Bradley University, and after 18 years, left my vice presidency at a bank investment arm to do mortgage origination for a couple years. And then as my kids got into that junior high level, I came back to Morton working part-time just to be more flexible and have more time with my kids. I've enjoyed serving on the board. I think we've done a lot of really good things in the last 4 years, and my hope is to continue moving forward, introducing more things into our system that I think will be good for our children who are living in times quite different from when we grew up. So I hope we get good questions that we can elaborate on those things. And I've had a life of service. I've done a lot of different Center for Prevention of Abuse, Blessed Sacrament Parish. It seems like I've always served in the community, so I'd like to continue to do so.
I'm number 5. I'm David King, lived in Morton, well, not physically in the town of Morton, in Morton School District all my life. I guess in the village of Morton I lived possibly 3 years I lived in Morton Village. When we first got married in 1978, my wife Gladys back there, we moved into town because there was no place on the farm for us. I've farmed all my life. I went through Jefferson School for 6 years, and then that's kindergarten through 5th, and 6th grade was the first year Lincoln School was built, so I went there. Junior high and high school. In high school, I took all 4 years of agriculture with Mr. Lindley. When I was a freshman in high school, he told me that I'm supposed to be an ag teacher, and I said, no, absolutely not. And so what have I been doing since? Teaching agriculture. I'm tried to help reinstate the ag program in the Morton High School in 1995 to 97. We had 5 concerned citizens wanting to help. We got it done in 2002, and it's been going downhill ever since. But that's not my main focus now, now that I spent my minute and a half. I've gone to many board meetings, and I think most people in this room know that. I've seen things go on that I don't think have been represented by all of the voters in this community. I want to represent the taxpayer as well as the parents and the students. I don't know how you can physically do that to make everybody happy, but we'll try our best.
Good evening to all, and thanks for coming out tonight on this cold, blustery night. Thank you to the 912 group. Thank you to Mr. Rule for moderating this for us. My name is Shad Beatty. I've been a pediatrician in Morton for the last 13 years. My wife Tricia and I are blessed to have 4 wonderful children, all girls. It's the good Lord's sense of humor. Their ages are 11, 9, 6, and the youngest will be 4 tomorrow. Fact she's very excited about. The oldest 3 proudly attend Lincoln Elementary School in 6th, 3rd, and kindergarten. The youngest is at preschool at Fantasyland, where her 3 big sisters attended before her. Harvest Bible Chapel is our church home. We've attended there since 2006. Before that, in my younger years, I grew up on our family farm in Rochester, Illinois. I graduated from Rochester High School in 1990. Went from there to Illinois Wesleyan University in Bloomington. After that, I went to University of Illinois College of Medicine, graduating from there in 1999. Subsequently attending OSF St. Francis Pediatric Residency, where I finished my residency as Chief Pediatric Resident in 2002. From there, I went to Morton Pediatrics, and that's back when we were on 4th Street over at the old Morton Medical Center. With some growth and some good luck and some help from the good Lord, we built a new building over here right to the side of us here at Maxine Drive, and I've been there ever since. My desire to run for the board is based on the fact that I've got 4 daughters in this race, and we want to make sure that education remains strong in Morton. It's always been a strong suit of Morton's, and we need it to continue that way. So as we move forward, I want to do my best to be a part of making some of those decisions.
Hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ron Hale. I, too, want to thank the 912 Tea Party for hosting this forum. Thank you very much. I know you want to know a few things about us. I'm retired. I was the president and chief executive officer at TCRC, Tazewell County Resource Centers, for 15 years. I've been an adjunct instructor at Eureka College and at Illinois Central College in my career. I served on the Board of Education previously from 2003 to 2007. I'm married, and my wife Carol and I, we celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary last October. And we have a 17-year-old son who's a junior at Morton High School, who has gone through the whole Morton school system since kindergarten. I have dedicated my entire adult life since age 18 to community service, helping those less fortunate than me. Children that have been abused and neglected, adopting many of them into loving homes, helping people with disabilities, with housing and jobs, and teens with suicide prevention programs, and recently too, preschool programs, pre-literacy programs for children so they're ready to learn when they go into kindergarten. I think my background and my experience is going to serve me well as a board member on the Board of Education. I think also having a proven history of success in conservative fiscal management and also being able to meet the needs of people in our community is something that I'll be able to bring to the Board of Education. So with that, again, thank you very much for the invitation tonight.
All right, so we'll start the questioning right now. These are questions that were generated from the communities of Morton and Groveland. And what we'll do is I'll just start on this end. Dr. Beatty, you can answer the first one, and then we'll go down. The second question, we'll start with Mr. King and go down, and you'll so forth and so on. So that way nobody's answering first every time. All right? All right, first question. What does transparency mean to you as a Morton School Board member?
Transparency is essential in gaining and maintaining the support of our community. The school board is an elected board. The people in the community put those individuals in that position. Once you're in that position, you're not in a vacuum. You're representing those people that voted you into that position. And so transparency means letting everyone understand what the needs of the community are, what the true needs academically, financially, what those needs have to accomplish in the future to maintain the education of our children. Of course, the hot topic coming up is going to be the new school and the potential of the new school. Transparency for me as a public individual currently is, why do we need that? Where's the spot that is broken that we have to have that new building? Is it necessary? If it's transparent, we should all understand why. If you feel like you understand why we need to build the new building, our board has been transparent to this point. If you feel like you do not understand the need, then transparency has to be a concern. If we don't have the support of our community, there's no use putting it out there. We know what'll happen with a referendum. We've seen it before. So transparency to me is making sure that everyone understands the needs.
Well, I guess transparency is something you can see through. I see through the lights. Let's see, lights outside the window over there. That means I can see through the window. It doesn't tell you a whole lot about the school board, though. I've gone to school board meetings for, I don't know, 15 to 20 years. Not near all of them because I farm also. I've done several Freedom of Information Act requests because I feel like I didn't have the information that most general public members would like to have. You can go on the website to find all that. The agendas at one point weren't all on the board minutes were not all on the website at one time, and I had asked the former superintendent why some of that was. Well, within 2 weeks, all the former board minutes were on the website again. So I don't know as if I corrected it, but I thought I had help in doing that. There's a lot of issues. I listed this afternoon 15 issues that should be discussed this afternoon. Whether we get to all of them or not, I don't know. The high school, the Common Core. I was up in Chicago at the annual Farm Bureau meeting, and Aaron Chalk showed up to talk to his constituents. I asked him the question, what is your estimation of what Common Core and the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare, and that does nothing to do with this meeting tonight, but he asked, do you have enough time to sit here and listen to the answer to those questions? Anyway, this is the one statement he said about Common Core. It is the ultimate liberal guide to education.
Well, my motto for this election is Strong Schools, Smart Finances, and actually came up with an acronym for SMART, and I'm sure we'll get through some of that tonight. But the last one tonight is the T in SMART is trustworthiness or transparency. I think it's vital to build the trust of the community when we're making decisions. Just from talking with people, I know one of the issues that people have brought up that there may have not been transparency on was the purchase of the land south of town. It was kind of a surprise to a lot of people, and I think there should have been a little bit more public input on that as far as location goes. Common Core, I know it's a hot topic, and there's strong opinions on both sides of the Common Core thing, but I think we really need to have some discussion and talk to concerned citizens about Common Core and do some things act on some of the concerns that people have. So those are some things that I think that we could, as a board, we could be more transparent on, so.
Well, transparency, in my mind, is all about being open and honest and trustworthy. As I was on the school board before, 8 years ago, and I think it's important that what you say in open session, what you're saying to people who live in our community on a day-to-day basis, that what you say then is what you do later. That you don't change when you go into executive session. You don't change your mind or change your position or what you've said when you are not seen, that you are honest, you're open, you're trustworthy on all the issues that come up before the board and are important to us as citizens relative to our school district. When I was on the school board before and I wasn't able to get this done, but I'm glad that it's done now, is I advocated for televising our school board meetings. And I was disappointed at the time that that didn't get more traction. That wasn't something that I could do by myself, but it was something that I advocated for very strongly. And I'm glad to see, you know, whoever got that done in the meantime, I'm glad to see that that's been done. That's a vehicle that we can use, so, you know, not everybody can be at a board meeting and sitting there in person, but it certainly makes it very easy and gets back to transparency by being able to watch on television.
Transparency, I'm just really proud to say that since I've been on the board and since Dr. Hall has come on board, we have made great strides at transparency. We videotape the board, we live stream that. You can watch that on your computer. You can go back and pull that back up. So even if you're not there that evening to watch it, you can watch it later. We post our packets, we post our agenda, we post anything we're going to talk about. We also post, we started the 709 Connect. We reached out to our community. We said, come talk to us. Let us know what you want to, we need to hear from you. We've been begging for this community to come to us and tell us what they want. Mixed results on that. Some people will say we had great turnout, that it's just hard to get people there. So if you listen to our sessions, and what we say in our sessions is really what we do. As far as a land negotiation, that really is a closed session item. You never want to get in a public bidding war on a piece of property. That's negotiated by your attorneys and it's negotiated behind closed doors. That's just kind of the law of the way that is on school boards. As soon as we had our agreement, we came out to the public and talked about that. We have our names and addresses, or our names and emails posted online. We have phone numbers posted online. I think we've been very open about call us, talk to us. We want to hear from you. And I think the people who've done that, we've been responsive to. So sometimes, no matter how transparent you try to be, someone believes you're not telling them the truth. And that's hard. So we're open. We're as open as we've been in a long, long time on that school board.
Okay, I guess going sixth on this one is a little easier because I'll repeat a little bit about what they say. I remember one of the first things when I was elected is I was like, why aren't our emails on our website? The village at that point had already had their emails and had been live streaming the board meetings on there. You would think it would have been very easy, but it took 4 or 5 meetings to finally convince and get it going. And then once we had the emails on there, the superintendent at the time wanted to screen them all. And we said, absolutely not. Because when you email a board member, you want to get the information to the board member. That's important. And then we started talking about videotaping, but we settled on podcasts as a compromise just to get something out. And then we worked into the MPTV, and Carol Jankowski's here, and she does a great job with that. And I think we've all seen everything from the board meetings on for the transparency issue. Another important transparency issue for me is how we handle our superintendent contract and evaluation. This past 6 months ago, we actually had a debate on our superintendent's contract in an open session. Prior to 2011, the superintendent's contract had some sick paid out and some things that maybe weren't quite above board at the time. It didn't look right. But now this superintendent is all about open communication, about the negotiations on our contract, and we also do a much better job of evaluating the superintendent. Another thing on the land issue I guess I'll hit on is we could have easily have put it out there and voted the next meeting. We opened it up for another month to allow public comment, and if somebody didn't know what was going on, I guess that's Steve Stein's fault because he doesn't have a large enough following. It was also on tape board members. For 1 month, we said, call us and let us know what it was, and I don't remember anybody at these tables calling us. In fact, I remember getting 3 calls. So, you know, we talk about Mr. Rule made a great job about saying you gotta be educated. You know, we're trying to find out what you guys want, but you gotta let us know.
Well, there've been several good points, probably batted back and forth as far as transparency. You know, we still direct the emails as requested by the superintendent back to her. I think probably the previous superintendent wanted a chance to answer for the district as our superintendent requests to do currently. What we do on TV, the video streaming, needs to match what we do in executive session. Very good point. May not be happening. I think probably the ultimate judge of whether you're being transparent enough is, does the community trust you? I sure get the feeling that we're not really trusted there. And so we got some work to do. Telling people what you think or what they should think is different than listening and being transparent. I think we've become very good about, and this is a plus, telling people what's going on in school, what's positive. But I also think we fixate real in a hurry and we pat ourselves on the back when we're telling people, you know, no, you should go this way, this is what you should believe. We kid ourselves when we say we're listening. And in my mind, that's also a lack of transparency.
Second question, Mr. King, we'll start with you on this one. In your opinion, what is the #1 issue facing the Morton school system and why?
Well, I said before there was 15 things I listed this afternoon, but I guess I'll have to cut her down. Probably the #1 issue would be the future of whether we continue looking towards building a new high school or middle school. The board hasn't decided which yet. I don't necessarily think that is the right timing. I don't think the community has been totally involved in that decision. Yes, we had the 709 Connect meetings. At the first set of 709 Connect meetings, we sat around the table and made a consensus, and one person spoke for the whole table. Therefore, individuals never had a voice. Yeah, you can make comments individually on paper. The second round was basically the same thing, not individuals allowed to speak. You could write comments. All those comments, by the way, are on the website. I found mine. There's pages and pages and pages. Everybody can go look at what everybody said about the building or not building. There's a lot of issues we ought to address before we go to building, and #1 after that would be whether we do a athletic complex redo. Thank you.
I think the #1 issue facing our district is maintaining correct priorities. You know, the priorities on my list is what happens inside the classroom. I care about academics, it's nice to have big buildings, nice buildings, and I want to have those. But I want to make sure that our priorities are set correctly before we get into that. I guess I just, some of the reasoning that's being given for going through with a major building project, which I know we haven't voted on yet as a board, but it seems like there's a lot of momentum going there. I just think that we don't have the correct priorities on that, and I would like to see some more feedback. I know we've had 709 Connect meetings, but I would like to see some more feedback from the community. It seems like, I forget who it was up here that said that people are kind of being told what to think as opposed to just being informed and let them think, for themselves. And I really believe that an informed public with good data will make informed decisions. And we've done a good job getting information out there for the facilities. It's just, I think some of the conclusions that people are making from that data, I think the priorities are off. So I would rather focus on maintaining our good facilities that we have, and let's focus on what happens in the classroom. Make sure that our kids, every child is unique. Let's make sure that our kids are cared for, and we can have each individual child, excel in the giftings that they have. So.
I think the number one issue, the number one priority is this. How do we, as a community, how do we as a school district provide a great education to our children, to our students, and do it in a cost-effective way? That's a complex issue. It's hard to do, both of those kinds of things. Financially, one of the things, I know that this can be done. I did it at TCRC. I was there 15 years, and in 15 years, we had a surplus budget. We just didn't have a balanced budget. We had a surplus budget that was about 5% of our total annual operating budget. Unprecedented for a not-for-profit to be able to do that. At the same time, we were able to meet the needs of those that we served. So both can be done. You can be financially responsible, and you can meet the needs of those that you're serving. One of the other things that I would like to see our school district do more of is take advantage of alternative resources, financial resources. Intel, for example, right now has announced $30 million is going to be spent on STEM education across the country. That's something that we should be all over as a school district, trying to get in on that. Education, I'd like to see us continue to move to things like all-day kindergarten. I'd like to see us continue to have more AP classes for students, vocational classes and training for those who may not really want to go to college. Those will all help students prepare for the next level. Again, both things I think have to be addressed. A great education, doing it in a cost-effective manner.
Thank you. Obviously, the greatest goal is to educate the child and the whole child. And today that looks a lot different than what it did years ago. The greatest thing facing us that we're dealing with on the board right now is obviously facilities. The population, people often say, of our children in the school district has decreased since the high. And so the question is, why do we need a new facility? And the reasoning is because we don't teach the same way. You talk to your teachers, they don't stand in front of a room with 26 children in desks that don't move. They're up, they're around, they're doing group work. We have new technology. Our youngest building was built in 1977. Today's technology, it's just really hard sometimes to make that work in those older buildings. But it's teaching that child. The other thing is all the special things we have in our schools today. So our population from the high was decreased by 26%. Our school room classrooms has decreased by 33%, because we have to pull out our special needs, our RTI, our computer labs, our social workers, our psychologists. So we're crowded, and we had when we didn't just say, oh, we're crowded, we did a capacity utilization to say, where are we crowded? What's our forecast? Do we really need, we're not just building a new building or suggesting that just to do that. We've really researched it, we've paid money for studies, and we've looked at that, and we said, what are our needs? And your teachers will tell you if you ask them, it's different today. It's different in the last 5 years. What we're expected to do, the individualized teaching takes a tremendous amount of time and different resources and different ways to teach your children. They don't stand up there and give a lesson and think everyone's going to learn it. They have to have small groups. We have to have places for those groups to go. That is part of having an excellent education.
Oftentimes, it's real difficult to say what's the number one priority. Anytime you sit in a situation like that, you're going to deal with things you never thought you dealt with. I'll be honest, 4 years ago when I was elected to the board, I didn't think we would be talking about Common Core because it had just rolled out. We wouldn't be talking about facilities because I didn't know some of the other prior planning that had gone on. So I want to be careful about one-issue voters or one-issue candidates out there, is when you step into this role, you're going to have to handle a plethora of things, and I can guarantee you half of them we can't even anticipate in this room right now. It's just the way it is. Academic excellence. Since 2011 to 2014, our high school ranking has gone up. You know, I think there's different rankings and stuff like that. We've always been a top 25 high school. We were recognized by Newsweek top 150. Plenty of city and evaluations. You know, Morton, great place to live. Well, a lot of that is the education that we provide to the kids. 2011, we offered one AP class. And for those that don't know, AP class is a college credit class that at the end of the class, you take a test and then you can forward it on to your university and either CLEP out or finish the class. That's important to parents. We had one. Now we have 7. And we also have, I think, around 5 or 6 more on the way. That is important. Now, honestly, as a board member, you know, we're not the ones deciding the AP classes, but as a board member, we're allowing our educators, our professional educators in our town, to make decisions and giving them the guidance and sort of untying their hands to do what's best for the student. Our teachers and our administrators, they all have our best interests of our kids at heart. And as non-professional educators on the board, you have to recognize when to take their advice and go with it, or to hold back, and then that is one of the things. So the academics always is going to be a big deal because it doesn't matter about the rest of the stuff. The facilities are also going to be very important because, frankly, not every building's going to last forever, and you gotta have a timely plan to handle that.
Well, I think it goes without saying, it's tough to narrow it down to one issue there. Everything's going to go back and be tied to money and the fiscal end of it there. We have been providing a very, as evidenced by our rankings, a good academic experience, and we've been doing it for many years. We started this ascent upwards years ago under previous administrators, and I'm very grateful to the board members that went before me that were conscientious enough and steered it this way. I'm benefiting from the work that they did and the previous administrators did. What we have to be careful of is that as we implement new programs, we're a little bit pickier. There's only so much money out there. We're doing this education experience for our community's students and children with less funds than we used to get. It's not like we can go out and get donations. Be great, but it doesn't necessarily work that way. And we're doing it at a time where we have more mandates than we ever had. So there's going to be a balancing act right there. We have to be careful as we go forward and we want to do this program and that program, that we don't exchange the old No Child Left Behind for No Program Left Behind. we can do a good job. We have to be picky, and fiscal responsibility is going to be the main thing.
Number one issue facing education, undoubtedly I feel is Common Core. The question was worded as number one issue facing our district, I believe, and I definitely believe that would be facilities. Because for those families who don't have children in school any longer, or don't have grandchildren any longer, the financial aspect of facilities has got to be weighing heavy on many families' minds. When I talk about number one issue facing education being Common Core, I believe that is diluting our educational system. And as pointed out, we don't teach in the same way. Some of that's good, much of it is not. Old school's not always bad. I went through a lot of years of education. I had a lot of great teachers. I learned in a lot of old buildings. And the buildings weren't shiny, the radiators made noise. We learned because our teachers were there to teach us. The teachers had the ability and the leeway to teach us as we needed to be taught. It wasn't directed to them what they must teach and how they must teach. Not all of us learned the same, so they had the ability and the time to take that time with each individual student and make everything work for that student. That is my concern with Common Core. Our teachers are losing that ability. It's not that we don't support our teachers, to the contrary. We want our teachers to be able to teach our children like I was taught by my teachers, who I respected to the utmost. When we talk facilities, having the brightest and shiniest is not always the best. I want the best for my children. And when possible, I like to be able to give them things. But I don't give them everything. That's not to their advantage. Having the best and brightest building is not going to increase the education of our children if in doing so, we financially cash trap ourselves to the point that we can no longer support our educators and what they need in the classroom. Those are my concerns.
The question is, Governor Rauner in the February 4th, 2015 State of the State address said state and local governments have failed to effectively control costs. In what areas do you see an opportunity for greater cost control in the Morton 709 school district budget?
Well, I guess I hate to harp on the same issue here, but when you talk about not only the school's budget, but also the impact that a new facility would have on property taxes and impacting the young families in our community, and also those on fixed incomes, it's somewhat staggering. So I can't just talk about the District 709 budget. I have to talk about the budgets of every single family in Morton. I think the greatest part of that budget should go towards educational spending. I know that we need to maintain and repair our buildings, and that's what I'm for. But going back to, the district budget is not the only thing that we should look at. We should be, focused on, not taking too much money from families' budgets. In 2013, the average college student loan debt was $28,000, a little over $28,000. And I was looking at it, I was okay, and this goes back to what I said about maintaining priorities and having the right priorities. If, say, our property taxes go up by an average of, I don't know, $700 a year, we'll just throw that out there. If I invest that, our third child was just born. If I invest that and get an average market return, I can have that $28,000 that I could put my kids through college, or at least one of them. And that's, so I think when I look at that, I'm like, okay, do I want my property taxes to go up, or could I put one of my children through college? I would rather put one of my children through college. So district budgets definitely impacts people's personal budgets, so.
Well, there are, I think, a number of issues that the district needs to pay attention to. I'll give you a couple examples, at least from my time when I was on the school board previously. One is health insurance. I was very satisfied that after being on the board for a couple years, when I first got there, I wrote a white paper to the Board of Education and to the superintendent at the time about health insurance. Our district at the time was not getting a good deal with health insurance for our employees. Now, I happen to know how to be able to handle this because I've been doing it at TCRC for several years, about how to bid out health insurance, get the same kind of coverage from the same hospitals and care providers, and we weren't bidding that out. After a couple years, we were able to bid out that health insurance at a savings of thousands and thousands of dollars to our school district, to our employees, and then ultimately to us as taxpayers. Less money that would have to be paid out for the same kind of care. There is a specific example. The other thing, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, that it may not be something that the district, as far as bricks and mortar or something like that goes, but I think we really need to be very aggressive with the strategic plan that we have, again, looking at alternative sources of income. And they're out there. I mentioned the Intel initiative that has just been rolled out recently. Those are the kinds of things that our district needs to do to make ends meet and to stretch the dollars that we have.
Just piggyback a little bit to what Ron said. We did try to pass a countywide sales tax recently, and that kind of, we would probably bring in $1.5 million from that every year to our school district for building situations. Morton actually was pretty favorable on that, but it has to be passed by the county, and it failed. So we have been looking for outside sources of funds. I will tell you about 82% of our budget goes to pay for salaries and benefits. So when you look at our budget and you want to cut somewhere, 82% of our budget goes to salaries and benefits for our teachers, and we have excellent teachers. So, I think that's a pretty good use of your funds. Insurance, we're a self-insured plan, and in the last 2 years, we've created a wellness program because the way to save on insurance is to lower your premiums. The way to lower your premiums is to lower your claims. The way to lower your claims is to be healthier. So we have instituted a wellness program, and we're going to work harder at that wellness program. We've asked our employees to buy into that wellness program so that our complaints can go down. That is a huge unknown in anyone's budget because medical expenses on average can go anywhere from 6 to 10% a year, and you can't always budget for that. We do budget conservatively. So we budget our expenses high and our revenues low every year, which is why we end up a lot of times running some surpluses. We are very fiscally conservative. Many of the things we've done in the last 4 years have been out of reserves. We've not gone to the taxpayer. Our tax levy has increased, but I ask you to go home and look at your tax bill. Compare with what you paid the school district last year to this year. Go back 4 years. I think you'll be interested. It was a 2% increase this past year. It's going to be a 0.6 increase going forward, and our contract the last 3 years paid our teachers 3% increases. So just grab your tax bill. It's kind of interesting.
From a budgetary standpoint, I reflect back to 2011 in June, a month after I was first seated, we had about $28 million in reserves. Very healthy school district. We want to maintain that way. That's our financial health. That's our financial grading. That allows us to absorb unknowns. I think we can all look at Washington and realize the unknowns they're handling. Now, our last fiscal year that ended in June of 2014, we had $32 million in reserves. So we grew our reserves $4 million. During that time, we also spent $3.2 million to add 12 much-needed classrooms to our buildings. During that time, we've invested $3.5 million into the high school furnace and heating system so we can use that building for hopefully another 50 to 70 years, because I think it was still, some of it was original equipment from 1955. We moved the bus barn off the high school property with working very closely with the village on the land out on Cortlandt Street so we could increase the parking area out there. We also, as we talk about the land purchase, we also purchased about a quarter of the land. Once again, without going to the taxpayers, increasing our reserves and investing in the future. So with everything going on great academically, everything going great financially, you know, we should always be fiscally conservative while we do that, and we are, but we also, the smart thing to do is not look towards the next election, but to look 20 and 30 years so we can continue to take care of our schools and take care of our finances. You know, we as citizens, we get ticked off at the House of Representatives and we get ticked at the state of Illinois because we only think those guys are looking about how to get elected the next time. You know, it's wrong because all it does is it pushes that burden on the next generation. And I don't want to be part of that generation that says, hey, my kids can take care of it. Now, it's got to be smart and it's got to be conservative. It's got to be what we need. It shouldn't be under, it shouldn't be over, and that is sometimes tough to do. Thanks.
Well, there was a time where the district actually ran a deficit. If memory serves me correct, it was in right around the 2000 year. So, you know, things always haven't gone as well as they are now. And folks, you can be really happy about the fact that this district does so much. I would never understand why anyone would be opposed to surplus because it has allowed us to address facility needs, it's updates, renovations that we need, and you know, we can do it without going to the taxpayers there. The previous superintendent, you know, started the addition of the 12 classrooms there. That was his, and you know, we switched to that because that was more of a need once the referendum did not pass. There are the little landmines you gotta watch, and it's not as much on facilities sometimes as it is on the operating budget. You know, as previous candidate mentioned, the bulk of the expenses are in the human resources, the people, and they're well worth it. You always have to watch expanding administration. You have to watch the expanding programs. And the other thing is, we have to watch new and bright ideas that, you know, could be harmful. Things like we recently viewed alternate bonds, which this district could get just under $11 million. Doesn't need taxpayer or approval, and it goes on the operations side of it. So, you know, again, I think we're doing a fairly solid job, but there are little landmines we got to watch out for that we don't want to step on.
The question of opportunities for greater cost control. I guess my first concern is that when we breach this question, that the opportunities for other funding comes up. Cost control and increasing funding are two separate things. We need to do a better job with what we have. The county school sales tax, yes, it would have garnered 1.7 million was the estimate, but we're still paying that 1.7 million. So the question of cost control shouldn't lead to how do we gain more funds. It should be how do we take care of the funds we have and use them more wisely. I'd love to tell you I have that answer. I'd love to sit up here and say I've got the answer for it and let's do it, let's move forward. I don't. Does it involve sitting down and listening to all sides, making an educated decision? Of course. It's no different than how Jeff would run his budget meetings at his home, okay? Or his wife would run them, however that may be. And so that's the physically conservative part of it, okay? We don't need more money. We need to use what we have. More money would be great, but the last I checked, we're not out of the economic uncertainties that we're in. I don't care what is touted in the news, we're not there. So it's not about gaining more funds. We need to use what we have more intelligently. And I would love to tell you those answers are there, and I think they are, but it's going to take sitting down, everyone looking through them and making good decisions for the community, not for the individual.
Dr. Beatty's talking like a farmer now. I guess we came from the same background, maybe. Like he said, you can increase your income or control your expenses. Everybody can relate to the state and federal government, but we're not talking about that tonight. But you know what? The pension crisis that the state is having with all their pensions, and it trickles down to our teachers, it may come to roost right here. There's hundreds of school districts in this state that would fold up or be consolidated with somebody else because of the pension. I call it the mess, but that's the state's problem, not ours, right? Anyway, we have what's considered the tax cap law, PTEL in Tazewell County. You're allowed to raise the tax levy, the cost of inflation, or 5%, whichever is lower. Our board has increased that every year since that's been a law, I think. I may be corrected on that, but that's a kind of a hidden increase of your taxes that nobody has accounted for. We failed the referendum for the state schools or the county's sales tax in 2009, and again in, I think it was 2013, and failed the $12.5 million. Some people called it the glass arcade gymnasiums, and that's a whole nother subject. We need to watch our expenses, and two farmers on the board will help you do that.
All right, next question. I'm gonna bop around here a little bit for time here. A lot of you were talking about facilities, so let's get into facilities. Mr. Hale, we'll start with you. Are you in favor of building a new high school and or middle school facility in the next few years, or would you rather add on to an existing school building to meet projected needs? And this is kind of a compound question here. And how will the increasing trend of students leaving public schools for homeschooling or private parochial schools affect this decision?
Well, first of all, like a lot of you, I'm waiting to see what the recommendations are that are going to come before the school board. Right now, I think as we sit here tonight, there really isn't a recommendation yet with specifics about facilities. But I'll play along. I know that we all are, I think, anticipating that there's going to be a recommendation, and my understanding is from most of the people who have attended the meetings, the recommendation is probably going to be for a new high school. So if and when that recommendation is brought to the board, what I'm going to want to do, and this is just how I operate, it's how I worked at TCRC and the Mental Health Association, everything that I've done in my career, is I'm going to want to look at it very closely and in a lot of detail. There's a saying that the devil is in the details, and that's what I'm going to look at. For me, any kind of a new building, it's going to have to address our needs. There's going to have to be a direct correlation between what our needs are as a district and that building is going to actually address those needs. It's going to have to be functional. For me also, being very conservative in my career, it cannot have any bells and whistles on it. And it also would have to function for decades. Don't want to be back here in a few years asking for more money to do more with buildings. And I will tell you that if it meets all of those conditions, if we have the transparency with how it's going to be financed, how that's going to impact all of us, one of the things that I can do as a board member is either vote yes or no to place a referendum on the ballot. And if it does meet all those conditions to my satisfaction, I'll tell you that I will vote yes to put it on a referendum, and I'll tell you why. It's an opportunity for everybody in this community to weigh in on a decision about a new building. Just not 7 people, just not a superintendent doing it, the entire community. We can all go vote and say what we want to with that. And, you know, for me, let democracy rule.
Are you in favor of building a new high school and/or middle school facility in the next few years, or would you rather add on to existing school buildings to meet projected needs? And the second part of that is, how will the increasing trend of students leaving public schools for homeschooling or private parochial schools affect this decision?
Okay. We are definitely coming out on February 24th at our board meeting with a recommendation either for a new middle school, 5 through 8, or a new high school to move forward to find more details. That's been on our agenda. That's our timeline. That recommendation came from a facilities committee that was put together from this community, who spent a lot of hours looking at our current facilities to see what our needs were. They brought the recommendation to the board, and the board then did capacity utilization studies. We've looked at all their information, and our choices at this point really were between those two. So we'll look at, those are options. I'm a little bit like Ron, we've got to see the numbers. So even on the 24th, if we say, move forward with finding more information on this solution, then we'll have to look at the numbers. It doesn't mean a yes or a no, it means we need to look further. Adding on to the current buildings, we've already done that more than once, and I can tell you our core spaces at our elementaries, with the exception of Jefferson, are an issue. In other words, we added on 4 classrooms, we didn't add on restrooms. Some of our schools, Grundy in particular, we have a very, very small room that they consider their gymnasium or their cafeteria. It's more of a common room. Our high school has 4 different lunch hours, and the seniors leave, they can leave for lunch because we can't fit everybody through there on a lunch hour. So those core spaces have to be addressed no matter what we do. If you simply add on more rooms to those elementaries, you've further done damage for the core spaces being too small. So those are issues. My thing is, whatever we do, I want it to address our issues at the elementary, at the junior high, and at the high school. I probably am not going to be in favor of a short-term answer and then have to turn around and come back in 5 years or whatever and say, hey, now we need this because we didn't get it all done here. So I'm looking for the most cost-efficient answer today, knowing that building costs will go up as time goes on.
Real quick, one thing on the parochial school and the homeschooling, I don't see the trend going away right now. I know since August 7th, we've only added one student, or August 6th or the 6th day is when we take our enrollment. We've added 1 kid. But a closer look at the numbers in K through 7 or K through 8, we've added 19 students since the beginning of the school year. We've lost some high schoolers because they graduate early and move on. So the enrollment trends, not a lot of people are leaving for homeschooling, not a lot of people leaving for parochial schools. We have great parochial schools. They do a wonderful job. They may come to our high school or not. All of the information the school board has is available on our website when it comes to facilities. All of our studies, all the information, and everything else. There's no call for transparency on this. It's there. You should be looking at it. When we had our facilities meeting, we had 350 people show up. As you look through it, from the people that gathered the data, about 60 to 70% said we should pursue the high school as a plan to, number one, replace the junior high, because that's the building that the facilities committee decided was the one that was in the most serious need of replacing. And along with that, if we can come up with a multifaceted plan that takes care of the needs of the grade school, the junior high, and the high school in one fell swoop, that is something worth pursuing. But let's be honest, we haven't seen numbers yet. I'm not going to commit to a yes or a no, because I think that would be very irresponsible without seeing the numbers going forward. So we're not coming back to you. A lot of things point towards a building being a good plan. First off, interest rates are very, very low. The quickest way to double the price on a building, have interest rates double. We all know that. I'm sure there's a lot of people here that have refinanced their homes. Once again, I know what the answer in this group probably would be if I wanted your vote. But sometimes that might be irresponsible if I'm trying to put a 20-year plan together that will ensure the strength of the district past next summer.
I was kind of surprised this question was asked tonight. Caught me off guard. This is a question that, obviously it's the talk of the town. I was told as a board member that the 709 Connect, you didn't have to feel bound by what they came out with. I certainly feel bound by it. When you talk transparency and we have all these figures and these studies, there's a lot of interpretations that can be made from the figures. For example, it's assuming that we're doing all-day kindergarten in all the schools, which will stress the facilities there. We have to be very careful with the property taxes as high as they are, and with my feeling that we have steered the community the way we want to go, and I'm not saying that to offend anyone else up here. I'm telling you that's the way I feel. I don't know that I can go with this. I think we're missing an opportunity with the low interest rates to come up with a better plan that could address the needs at the many facilities and do it for a whole lot less money, and be good for long-term down the road. I'm not considering piecemeal. Long-term for all the facilities is what I'm thinking of. We didn't go down that road, didn't even look at it really to speak of.
In favor of building a new school or not? What about the increased number going to homeschooling? In favor of building a new school, new facilities? No, I am not. When we talk transparency, we talk about using information that we have been given to us. I'm not business educated. We are talking about numbers that are given to us by our administration and our board. It was a single hand-selected study, Cropper GIS. They say 90% capacity in the elementary, 80% in the secondary. The concern is the core space once they push from there. I've got 3 daughters in school. They've all been able to go potty each day. They all are able to eat lunch every day. The PE mandate people want to throw out there because they're concerned that we're having lunch in the gymnasium. The PE mandate's been around for 40 plus years. It's not enforceable. No one's kicking us out of the IHSA. No one's going to do anything if we don't meet that mandate. When we talk about number of kids leaving for homeschooling, et cetera, Tim may be right. It may not be a big number right now. Do I have concern that it's going to be a large number? Yes. And there's no secret where I'm headed with this one. Common Core is diluting our education. I've sat and thought about it. My wife and I have sat and talked about it for our 4 daughters. Is it the place for our daughters to be? Yes, it is. It's their education. But we as parents and as community members are responsible for fighting to that education. If there's things that are going on that we feel are inappropriate, that's our job. We must protect our children. We must protect our teachers. And so the concern for going to parochial schooling, homeschooling, I have the same concern.
I agree. No, I'm not in favor of new high school, new middle school. Number one, this community spoke loud and clear back in the mid-90s, early to mid-90s. I looked it up on Tazewell News website. It was a different situation. We talked about some type of a middle school. The bottom line was this community did not want to go away from kindergarten K through 6 in their neighborhood schools. We would be doing that without basically any community input. Yeah, we had 709 Connect. You're gonna let 300 people decide for 20,000? And by the way, of those 300 and some people, I venture to guess at least 20 to 25% were 709 employees. They were there representing the district. But anyway, let's ask the teachers if they feel like they're crowded. Maybe I need to get into the schools more often. Times I've been there, I've been to Lincoln School for the last 18 years since my son was in 3rd grade, and we're doing it again this year. We're taking fertilized eggs in to hatch them, and I've had teachers tell me that's something that the kids have remembered when they graduated and came back and told their teacher that. I've been there, and that's not even part of the question. Let's go to the next.
So do I support a high school or middle school or existing, and then the concerns about people moving out, homeschooling and parochial? Yeah, that was actually something I jotted down that Dr. Beatty mentioned is I don't think we should underestimate the impact on enrollment numbers that Common Core implementation is having. I looked at the Cropper presentation. Actually, I think the district and the Facilities Advisory Committee has put a lot of good information out there, and so I compliment them on that. There's a lot of good stuff out there. Allows guys like me to go out there and look at everything. So I don't think we should underestimate that. Overall facilities plan, obviously I support meeting the needs of our kids and doing it in the most cost-effective way, manageable. I don't think building a new high school or a middle school is the most cost-effective. You know, let's say it is $50 million. You know, we've seen numbers, you know, one of the options in the Facility Advisory Committee said $90 to $100 million, but, you know, could it be $50 million? That was in one of the recent 709 newspapers. And we don't know exactly what that $50 million covered, but let's say it is $50 million. I still have to ask, are we meeting the needs of our kids, and can we do it another way, a more cost-effective way? Elementary enrollment peaks out in 2018, and then it goes down a little bit after that. Not much, but it peaks out in 2018. When I graduated from high school, there was 90 more kids in the high school than there is right now. And I didn't even think about being cramped in that high school. I had classes in the basement. I didn't care. I was just going to school to get a good education and play sports. I mean, that's just what I wanted to do. When I graduated from junior high, there was 70 more people, more students in the junior high than there is right now. I don't see the issue. Elementary schools, it's cramped, okay? But I think we need to wait a little bit longer to see how these enrollment numbers are going to play out. Like it's been said already, you know, we hired the Cropper GIS consultant. I think we need to check to make sure that their model is accurate, and I'm being told I'm out of time, so.
All right, next question, and we'll move into the curriculum part of this thing. What has made Morton 709 successful in the past? And why is the Morton School District listed as a top school in the state?
The number one answer to that is our teachers. It's our educators. I don't care what your curriculum is, it's your teachers in front of your children. And they care for those children, not only educationally, but socially and emotionally. Our kids today, some of them come to school with a lot different backgrounds than some of us maybe did. The Common Core has been thrown about tonight. I know that's not the exact question, but the Common Core are standard. Okay, you don't want me to go there with that? Okay. Here's the deal with Common Core, and we can repeat it when we get back there. They're standards. If you go on the website and read them, they're standards, and they give the teacher the ability to teach how they want. The curriculum is ours. We have a curriculum committee. Board members sit on the curriculum committee. We pick our textbooks. Have we changed textbooks? Yes, because we have to teach a different sequence in those lower grades. They're doing algebra earlier. They're putting geometry off till later, so the textbooks have to align to that. They have to understand what those algebraic equations mean. It's the teacher who teaches them how to understand that information. It's 2 minutes isn't a great way to explain this, but our teachers at the front of the classroom are excellent teachers. We get hundreds of applications for every single opening that we get, so we can pick the best of the best out there, and we do, time after time. So when they stand in front of their students and they're told to follow this standard, that their kids have to know this, it's up to them to figure out how to teach them to get to that. I've heard the rigor's harder. You talk to them 5 minutes later. It's been a big issue, but go read the standards.
All right, Jim, I would like to say that everybody else has been able to comment on Common Core during this debate, and you haven't stopped them. So, I get 2 minutes. First thing I'm gonna say, number one, like Michelle said, it's the teachers. The teachers do a wonderful job. We have great teachers, we have great administrators that allow them to teach. Right now, I know this is gonna touch on the Common Core, and I disagree with Shad. Our teachers pick the lessons plans. They pick the note papers they put in front of the students. They are involved in picking the books. We've been picking the books for the past 20 years. It's you guys. Every book that we put in our classroom goes to the library for 1 month for public comment. You wanna know how many comments we get? I'll give you a guess, and it's less than one. But our teachers are the primary thing, and it doesn't matter. I mean, from the Common Core and the standards that go on, they were doing great under the old standards. They're doing great now with these standards. And when these standards go away, and they will, whether you want them to or not, our teachers are gonna continue to go and do a great job. One of the things, and I mentioned it during my intro, is you gotta ask for specifics. There's a lot of generalities put out there. So how do I know what's going on in our classrooms are gonna continue to make Morton 709 a top performing district like we are? Number one, I talk to my administrators, I talk to my superintendent, and I talk to my teachers. Between those 400 employees, they probably have close to 3,000 years of teaching in Illinois before Common Core and now. And that's where I'm getting my information. Now, I could go out onto the websites and find newspaper articles about Chicago unions and New York City unions and get my information from there. But that doesn't seem like local control to me. I'm gonna continue to talk to my administrators, and when my teachers come to me and say, this isn't working, then we'll start talking about changing it.
Yeah, number one, there's several aspects of it. The teachers certainly figure in that prominently. What we also have to just be very truthful about is we got a great community. We have great parents, great families. We have people involved in their kids' education. That makes a difference, and we got good demographics for the most part. There's other districts that don't have that. Are their teachers no good? No, they got to struggle with a lot more problems than we do here. I compare it to this. Take the same teacher or take the same coach, give them Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and that group to work with, and then give them John Applin to work with in basketball. Big difference. Not their fault. So when we talk about excellence, a lot of it has to do with the teachers. They make a difference. They get the kids' attention. But let's not shortchange the community that we are. We have involved parents. They want to stay involved in their kids' education. They want to be able to sit down and help them with their homework and understand what's being taught to them. It's not a problem. The Common Core at this point, it's going to come back around, so I'm going to address that then. I just suspect that we might have another one there. And I'll give you my answer on that.
Has made 709 successful in the past. Motivated children, motivated students, exceptional teachers, involved parents, supportive community. It's the recipe. There's nothing fancy about it. That is the key, and that's what's made this community successful. When we change components, when we lose transparency, when we have families disengaged, and you can list the reasons, and we'll cover them in a bit, it sounds like. When that happens, you lose part of the equation. I don't care if as a parent I'm not disciplining my children, making them understand that education is their primary responsibility. Well, I just messed up part of the equation. It's not gonna work. All four aspects have to be there. For the supportive community, transparency. Gotta understand what we need. The excellent teachers, we know we have, but they've gotta have the freedom to teach. They have to have the confidence that they can approach if there are problems and there are concerns. They have to have the confidence that their livelihood is not in jeopardy. We have to make sure all four components of that equation, the involved student, the motivated student, the exceptional teacher, the involved parent, and the supportive community is there. Whatever it takes to get there, that's the responsibility of this board.
But anyway, we won't go there. What made this school district great? It's every one of you sitting out there. The parents, the grandparents, the churches, the solid base that this community was founded on, the Constitution that these United States was founded on, that some people don't want to go along with anymore. The Constitution of the United States should be the rule of the law. The state puts out mandates that everyone on this board doesn't know how we can keep up with, but they don't provide any funding with it. But the solid base of our community is the school, and the school goes hand in hand with the parents and the churches and every one of you sitting out there. Thank you.
I was actually talking to a school administrator recently, and they emphasized that one of the major keys to the success of our district was parents. And he didn't de-emphasize anybody else, but that's just something that he brought up on his own. You know, and I think that's a major role. Obviously, teachers have a enormous impact, but it's students. What makes our school district good? It's students, it's parents, it's the teachers, it's the administration, it's the taxpayers, and it's the school board. I mean, I think all 6 of those components are vital. At work, like I said, I have a mechanical engineering background, but I calibrate 6-cylinder diesel engines. And some of you are wondering, okay, where's he going with this? But, you know, all 6 of those cylinders are vital for the power output, meeting the customer requirements, the best efficiency of the engine, the best fuel consumption, meeting emissions regulations. The performance of those engines, all 6 cylinders have to be firing, and all the 6 components that I just mentioned, I think they're all reasons why we have a great school system. But yeah, I definitely would weight parents and teachers at the top of that list, so.
Well, I'm probably going to end up echoing a lot of the comments that have already been made. First of all, parents. My wife and I, you know, we've got to know a lot of families over the last 17 years that our son has been born, and a lot of those years going to school. And we see the importance of parents. We know what we've done as parents, and we know what our friends have done. That's absolutely crucial. But the greatest asset within our school district are teachers. Teachers every day taking care of our kids, teaching them, educating them, helping them in various ways in a loving, safe environment. Teachers are absolutely critical. My wife is an elementary school teacher in this area, and I see what she does every day to take care of her students, going into work an hour early, coming home 2 hours late, spending a couple hours every night getting ready for the next day, spending her own money to make sure that students have what they need within the classroom so she can educate them the right way. Teachers are absolutely critical to this process. And the other thing that we have really respected over the years are the administrators. Our son went to Grundy School, and we got to know Mr. Saunders extremely well over the 7 years that our son was there, and how valuable he has been in working with the teachers in that school, working with the students, making it a safe place to go every day, a school where children can learn, that they're free to learn, has also been very valuable as well, and I know how supportive he is of his teachers at that school. So those are just some examples that we have engaged over the years.
So, you know, that's the next question, is what is Common Core as you understand it, and what place does it have in the Morton educational?
What is Common Core in relation to state standards? And there's a difference between standards and curriculum, and there's some nuances part of it. I believe it's right around the middle 80s, maybe early 90s, the state of Illinois has says, these are the standards we're gonna test you on. Meaning, we think a third grader should know this, we need to think a fourth grader should know this, and we're gonna test it on you. They did that through ISAT. 5 or 6 years ago, 2009, the governors got together, along with the state school superintendents, and decided that they thought most states should have the same standards. They thought a kid in Mississippi should know what a kid in Morton knows. Whatever, you know, that's their call. And our state of Illinois adopted that as their standards. That is their call. It's the State Board of Education, and it's the legislators' call. Now they've said they're gonna test us on it. From my standpoint is, it doesn't matter as much as people are making out in a district like Morton. And my analogy is, we have always been jumping, you know, I'll give you a high jump analogy. We've always been jumping 10 to 11 feet. By moving the state standards to a more rigorous standard, they moved the bar from 4 feet to 5 feet. And since that's been going on, we're continuing to do better and better. You know, take a look at the number of AP classes. Take a look at our ACT scores. Now, if I woke up tomorrow morning and Common Core was gone, would I care? No, I wouldn't, because we got the same teachers doing the same great job. But those people that want to get rid of it, first off, if the people that are anti-Common Core are on the board in 4 years when they're up for election, and the state of Illinois says Common Core is here, it's still going to be here. They're making promises they can't keep. I mean, be honest with it. The problem is our teachers, or not a problem. The great thing is our teachers are doing a great job, and from that standpoint, it really doesn't matter to us. Our kids are going to handle whatever we throw at them.
Common Core was developed by, as a new set of standards. I think Tim gave the explanation as far as trying to make everything common in each state. You know, it's the latest, greatest, no child left behind. On paper, it's in theory. I think Dr. Hall today at Rotary kind of made a good point. There's a lot of great legislation, good intentions. The problem is when you get boots on the ground, there's a lot of problems to it. Let's start with the amount of testing. There's more testing, and folks, the teachers have to deal with the testing of this new park. You prep for the testing. My goodness, I don't know if you prep for the tests there. And then we have MAP testing 3 times a year. Our kids are well tested, not well rested. And a couple other things, curriculum. Yeah, right now we choose the books. The problem is I went through, it's called the Schoolhouse over in Peoria. The problem is the textbooks we are going to be choosing from are what's mandated to us. by the federal government. That's what all the, if the money for companies is gonna be made on Common Core curriculum, books, that's what we're gonna be taking. If all you have to choose from is Common Core books, that's what we'll end up having to do. Yeah, it's law. We don't have to hug them, though, you know. We don't have to march in step. I'm not a rebel, my goodness, not at my age. At the same time, we're Morton.
First and foremost, I don't think anybody up here tonight has promised to rid the town of Common Core. I'd like to, but no one's made that promise. Common Core is a set of standards that the state signed off on for federal race to the top money. Signed off sight unseen. Standards weren't complete when we said we would adopt these standards. We didn't know what they were. We were cash strapped. We were going after the money. When we talk about excessive testing, as John put it very aptly, the testing is much more involved and requires a lot more time than any of our previous testing to this point. Unfortunately, standards do drive curriculum, whether we want to admit to it or not. If teachers' evaluations, eventually their pay, is going to be based off of these tests that they're giving our children, if I'm a teacher, I'm going to make sure they know that. We like to say we're going to teach above it. That'd be great if we had a lot of extra time, because they could get the curriculum taught, the standards taught, and teach above it. They don't have the time. The testing is demanding that. The practice testing is demanding that. Our teachers are held accountable to these, and they are weak standards. I'm tired of hearing the word rigor in regards to Common Core. The highest level of math at Common Core is a weak Algebra 2. I'm sorry, I took that in 8th grade. We need to challenge our students. The idea behind Common Core is to bring up the bottom, but we bring down the top. We average everybody out. We need to continue to challenge our exceptional students and then do the extra work to help those that are struggling come forward. But Common Core does not accomplish that in any shape or form.
I never had you in math. I don't know why, though. But anyway. I didn't take trig. Whatever, we won't go there. Like I said before, Aaron Schock said it's the ultimate liberal guide to education. I got 13 copies of a letter here that he wrote me, and he gave me permission to give to whoever. I mean, I copied him myself, and I had his permission to do that, but he's not the president yet. Anyway, I'd like to call it a different name, but the state of Illinois calls it now the New Illinois Learning Standards, parentheses 2015. Our school district calls it that. Common Core's got a bad name. I wish we could call it common sense, but I don't know if there's any common sense in it. But anyway, I guess you know where I feel about Common Core. I thought it was great to have everybody in Mississippi to California to New York to Washington State being able to move from 3rd grade to 3rd grade at the other location and be at the same level. That sounded super, but I don't know how you're ever going to physically do that with all the different economic levels and different standards where each school district is at right now. Look at the school districts within the 50-mile radius of here and see if they're equal or not. It's a great idea, but it might be the next one that goes by the wayside and waiting for the next one after that.
Yeah, so it's Common Core. I think, you know, I don't question the intent of those who, I guess, the positives that he was saying. I mean, I think if that's what you want to do, I think that it can aid in that. The problem is that when you talk about Common Core, yes, Common Core is the standards themselves, but you also have things attached to them, and that would be the testing and the curriculum both. And you have to, most of what I'm going to say has already been touched on, but basically, I mean, if you got a certain test question that says this, well, you're going to have to choose curriculum that teaches to that question. So you don't exactly, you might in name have local control over curriculum, but in all matters, you don't have local control. Because if I want to, if you consider, well, choosing between 4 different Common Core textbooks, if that's a choice, well, that's not really a choice. Let's have some other choices too. So Common Core is the standards, but I also see it as the testing, specifically in Illinois, the PARCC test. I don't know of, I don't think I've heard feedback from any teacher that's excited about the PARCC test. I think as a district, we need to hold off on that for this year. We got new fancy iPads. I don't know if you even noticed, I got one up here, but we got new fancy iPads this year, and you know, we're going through a validation phase in those. You know, I work in product development, so you always want to, you know, prove things work before you go to the next level, and I think that at the least, we need to hold off on PARCC testing this year. I know there's been some things come down from the state superintendent, but you know, that's a mandates thing, and so.
Well, Common Core is a prescriptive curriculum with an emphasis on mastery. I don't have a problem with raising the rigor and having high standards. I think Tim did a good job of articulating where we're at as far as high jumping. I don't think that's going to impact our students greatly. There are some problems, I believe, with the implementation. Anytime you get the government telling us when to test, how to implement, I would hope that we could have more control in our own schools with that. My wife's a teacher. She's going through this right now. So I maybe don't have a firsthand view of it, but I certainly have a bird's eye view of what's involved with implementing Common Core right now. I think what we've got to do as a district and as a Board of Education is we have to, as our teachers are working with our students with Common Core, and it's here right now, we have to be committed and stay committed to local control and supporting our teachers and having the latitude to teach children, even though they are implementing Common Core, but again, stay committed to our teachers having the latitude to teach the way that they know best to teach with our children in this community.
I don't think I misunderstood, but I thought Shad said that algebra was like the highest math to be tested on and the standards, because our kids should do really well as they take AP Calc in high school. I mean, we're way above that, which is what I think Tim's trying to say. MAP testing that was alluded to, it helps show individual where they need help with, and it helps a teacher to know this person needs help in this area or that area. I have to tell you, I used to read essays from juniors in high school, applications. It was for a scholarship. And we need some, we as great as Morton is, we need some help on our writing. And I know the standards say your writing needs to be moved up. And even as great as Morton is, we do have some weaknesses. The other thing is reading informational text. It's different reading a novel versus reading a science book versus reading a technology book. It's just a different type of reading, and what Common Core says is we need more exposure to that type of reading. These kids, when they graduate from here, are going out into a world, and they're gonna have to know some of those skills. And I think that was the whole thought behind Common Core, is raise the skills we're teaching our children so they can go out and be ready for a career or be ready for college. You know, because there was money associated with it, it was coming down from the state, it got it's a bad rap. I'm not saying it's all great. Just as Ron alluded to, rollout wasn't pretty. We've had to do professional development. We have to do more professional development because teachers have had to realign what they teach in that grade year. And I think we're working towards it. No one likes change. The first year was hard. Second year's been a little better. PARCC, just so you know, Dr. Hall, along with other superintendents, wrote a letter to Dr. Cook saying, no one's ready for PARCC testing yet from a technology standpoint, from a rollout standpoint. That letter was written for about 30 superintendents, and he came back and said, if you don't take part, you won't get your money. So we're doing those things here locally to keep our local control.
Deals with Common Core a little bit more on the content, realizing that the administration of Common Core is sometimes beyond what our control is. But this question is more of a content question. And the question is, some Common Core curriculum content has created controversy in some areas by teaching things that may be different from what we learned in school or what may not align with what parents may want their children to learn. How would you respond to that?
I gotta say, this is a fun night. We need to do this more often here, so. Part of it goes back to what I said earlier. We're gonna get to a point where we really don't control what's in the textbooks. Not anyone's fault, not the teachers, not the Board of Education, not the boards that sits on there. But when all you have to choose from is certain textbooks that are aligned, you know, you're gonna be teaching maybe things that are not aligned with what our community is. And, you know, that's gotta be a concern. Personally, on Common Core, we're not raising standards here. We've had high standards, Tim's correct on that. The problem is the government is not worried about bringing the top down. They'll brag about how they narrowed the gap, whether they bring the bottom up or the top down. That's just what they do. You know, it's a concern. I don't know what to tell people out there when they're saying, I don't want this taught. I certainly understand, because I have my beliefs, and I want that passed on to my children. And that's why you're finding, as in a August 20th article in U.S. News and World Report, you're finding thousands are taking their kids out of the public school systems where this is at. As far as teachers, I found it interesting in that same article in U.S. News and World Report that in 2013, 76% of teachers at that point were in favor of it. That dropped dramatically to only 46% a year later, and 40% of teachers against. As more's found out about it, it's less popular. There's a reason for that.
Content of Common Core. There's been a lot of information out there, a lot of questions about the appropriateness of Common Core, the developmental appropriateness of Common Core. There were two educators on the validation committee for Common Core, Dr. Sandra Sotsky, professor of English, Dr. James Milgram. He's a math professor. Both of them refused to sign off on it. The only two educators on the validation committee. You have to ask the question, why? Reading informational text is brought up as a great thing. My sixth grader, here in our district, spent an entire week at her LA was regarding Minecraft and Legos. A one-page paper, compare and contrast for an entire week. She sat at the table after about the second night with tears in her eyes. Dad, I don't know what else to say about it. Okay. What happened to Huck Finn? What happened to Catcher in the Rye? Okay. I expect more from my daughters. My third grader, sitting at the kitchen table. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of tears there. Third grade, it's great to say algebra's good, but is it developmentally appropriate? Sitting there, question to me, was, Dad, why are there letters in my math? Okay. They were trying to do equations. Okay. X plus Y. Okay. For a third grader, she's still trying to learn her math facts. When you ask her to add and divide and multiply, she does a trick on her fingers. My sixth grader, 0.6 times 0.4. Doesn't involve a 100-cube grid. Shade in 60 cubes in one axis, 40 on the other. Where they overlap is 24, so the answer is 0.24. No. I want my daughter to learn that 6 times 4 is 24, and you've got 2 decimal points there. Move them over. That's what's appropriate for that age. As we get older, some of us love math. And then we can do some of these things in our head. But not my third grader, not my sixth grader.
I love math, but I don't have my income tax papers done yet, so why am I doing here? Anyway, Common Core standards have been adopted in most school districts in math and language arts. I'm not even sure if science and social studies is coming next or what for sure. It's maybe kind of like Obamacare, we'll find out later. But I'm not even sure about that. So, it's a house of cards ready to fall. So, I talked to a teacher this afternoon, has 2 kids in Letty Brown, or not to a teacher, a parent has 2 kids in Letty Brown. One kid excels and loves math. The other one has to go through it 5 and 6 times to figure it out. And one comment he made is not the way I used to do it. And like he said, the block system to try to figure it out didn't work. The way to understand it is go back to the basics and learn your 2 times 2 is 4 and learn those facts. I'm not an expert on Common Core. I've learned a lot. What I have learned is it's getting more complicated to teach the basics. And I was always told that we ought to use the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid.
Well, like I said earlier, my first of 3 kids will be entering kindergarten next year, so I don't have like the firsthand experience that say Dr. Beatty has with Common Core. So because of that, I've had to research it myself and talk to parents and what their experience is. Dr. Beatty brought up the math. You know, being an engineer and loving math and everything, at first I was kind of like, well, I think it's cool to look at things differently and, try to solve different problems differently. And then I was like, well, these are really, these are generally elementary math. It's not rocket science. They're generally simple problems, like you said, 0.6 times 0.4. The simplest or the best method to solve a simple problem is with a simple solution. And if there's kids that have issues with the, I guess, traditional, if you want to call it, way of teaching things, then fine. Let's go and let's teach them a different method to see if they can learn how to master the concept that way. I've gotten feedback from one parent that they think that, well, my child's struggling with math, so it would have been good to have these different methods. Great. Okay, let's have different methods for people who need it. For others, I've heard that, okay, they master the first method and it just seems like busy work after that. And so those are some of the things that I've heard. The other thing is, I believe it's going to be in 2016, the next generation science standards will be out. And so I'm sure we'll be talking about those sometime soon, and the content in those, and we'll have to choose curriculum and such with that. So,
Well, I think if I remember the original question, I'll try to address some of that. Yeah, it's real clear. As I talk to people in the community, there's a lot of parents who are uncomfortable with Common Core. There's a lot of children that are uncomfortable with it as well. I'm sure that there have been tears at home. It's an emotional issue. I look out at the audience today and I see a lot of people, because of your gray hair, that are probably about the same age I am. I don't know, does anybody here remember what was called new math back in the 60s? Okay, and you probably know what I'm going to say. I was one of those kids that went home in tears because of what was being taught at that point. It didn't make a lot of sense. I remember being taught new math all the way through grade school. When I got to junior high school and had to be able to do like simple division and simple multiplication, I couldn't do it. Came home that night. I still remember this. You can see that it made an impression on me. It was a long time ago. My dad sat down with me and 2 or 3 other kids from our neighborhood, had been through the same thing that I'd been through, and he taught us how to do simple division and simple multiplication in about 30 minutes. Okay, so I have, in a way, a long time ago, I think, experienced this myself. What we have to do right now is make sure that parents, teachers, building principals are collaborating with each other and talking to each other as much as possible. Those teachers and building principals have to be accessible to parents. And then in addition to that, as I said earlier, the Board of Education needs to listen to our teachers and give them great latitude in how they teach students. If a student needs a different method to be able to learn something, you're exactly right. Let's give them the latitude to be able to do that. And I think that's probably fairly consistent with what they've been doing for years anyway.
Very similar to Ron, my husband is a statistician and I'm a finance major, and if you give us the same math problem, we're going to get the answer right and we're going to go about it totally different ways. And he laughs at me because he's quicker at doing it his way. But I really think that's kind of what the math is about, and it's about understanding the concept, not just memorizing rote numbers, but understanding what the concepts mean. Not being able to help with homework, my last one graduated in 2013, and there were all kinds of times I wasn't able to help them with homework, or I'd draw out the math problem and I'd start solving an algebraic equation the way I learned it, and he'd say, "No, Mom, no, that's not what they're teaching us." That was way before Common Core. Cheers at the table, that kids do that. My kids never had Common Core, we had tears at the table. And my kids were relatively bright. Recently, I heard a conversation from a junior in high school, and she was complaining about Common Core and how hard it was. So we hear, it's dumbed down, but no, it's really hard. It's somewhere in between. But I asked her, I was interested, I said, can you give me an example? What is hard about Common Core? And she starts telling me about her science class. We don't have Common Core standards or curriculum right now in science. And that's why I tell her. So I said, it's because you're taking your science class for the first time. And if it's hard, you're immediately saying it's Common Core. It might just be hard because Morton High School is a pretty tough high school. So I just say be careful when you hear things, ask questions.
Yeah, this goes into a lot of what I mentioned in my opening about asking for specifics on the certain opinions. The teachers were on the work groups and the feedback groups for ELA and math standards. The NEA, the American Federation of Teachers, National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, National Council of Teachers of English, among others, were on there. Teachers were on the team's state committee to go over them, and they also provided a lot of input during Common Core state standards thing. So the fact that teachers weren't involved, false. It's false. It's an internet rumor. Like Michelle said, I'm confused because on one hand, somebody said it wasn't hard, and now we've got tears at the table because it's too hard. I can tell you, I talked to a lot of people about Common Core, and I've heard a lot of the complaints. Not one person that says, this is too easy for my kid. Not one person. Not one person. It's different. It absolutely is. But I'd like to say for Jeff and Ron, our teachers can reach each kid on where they are. That is within their abilities. And that's what we expect them to do. Now, some extra tools that they learned, that might reach that kid, but won't reach this one. And maybe we go back to the old new math in the 1960s and 70s. For parents that struggle with it, I'd say this. I want my kids to surpass my intellectual ability as fast as they can. And I want my youngest son, who's 7-year-old, to surpass my 19-year-old's intellectual ability as fast as they can. The science standards Michelle hit there. It is interesting that one thing I have never heard is everybody who's against it won't tell me one standard they don't like. I've even had 2 or 3 people that are very involved in this anti-Common Core. They've even said, hey, we're okay with the standards, we just don't like how they came about. Absolutely a fair argument. But the thing is, when it comes down to we have the same teachers that were teaching before, that are teaching now, and they're doing a great job, and there's going to be growing pains. And if it goes away tomorrow, what are you going to replace it with?
We're going to do the 1-minute closing remarks at this point, so you'll each have 1 minute to give a closing remark, and then we'll wrap it up. Why don't we go back the opposite way that we did when we started? Mr. Hale, if you'd like to start first.
Well, again, thank you for holding the forum tonight. My leadership abilities, experience, and knowledge base, I think, are going to be valuable as the Board of Education faces some important challenges in the upcoming years. What is particularly important is my demonstrated success in conservative fiscal management and still knowing how to address community needs. I want to close with this. I know we just have a short time period here. 8.5 years ago, the Board of Education, I was on it then, attempted to limit the public's opportunity to speak at board meetings. And I stood alone opposing that policy. The Morton Times wrote about it, and I have it here. I understand the importance of our freedom of speech and participation in matters of public policy. I championed it 8.5 years ago for us, and again, I will advocate for everyone's voice to be heard by the board in matters pertaining to our school district. Simply, if you want to know what I'm going to do in the future, look at what I've done in the past. Thank you.
I won't spend my 60 seconds trying to rehash the information we've just put before you. What I will say is, as a voter, I'm a voter, you're all voters, I hope. You've got to decide who most represents your beliefs and your values. I don't think there's a bad person sitting up here. I really don't. I've talked to them all. I've called many of them friends. Do we have some different ideas? Of course. But I talk politics with my best friends, and we have different ideas. So that's not unusual. You just have to choose who you think best represents the needs of you as an individual, us as a community, and our education of our children.
Does everybody know whose birthday it was today? Abraham Lincoln. He would have been 206. How old was he when he died? My figure's right, he was 56 years old. He was born in 1809, died in 1865 in a pretty untimely death. But he did a lot in those 56 years. But anyway, I had 2 sons graduate from this school district. I've been here. We've covered a lot of things tonight, but we didn't cover teacher contracts. They're being negotiated right now. All-day kindergarten was mentioned once. Everyday PE has been talked about, not very covered. The total athletic complex redo from $4 to $7 million ahead of time. There's, like I said before, there's 15 or more different topics that need to be discussed. We're not near done, but we're going to pass.
I have to say, 4 years ago when I ran for the school board, I was a little naive. I didn't understand exactly how school boards were financed. There was a lot of information that goes on, there's a lot of laws with school districts. It's a learning curve of about a year, I would say. So it's a great experience. I've enjoyed it. But I will say, you may not agree with everything I said tonight, but I know you believe in the Constitution, and part of that's upholding the law. The PE mandate, which runs out this next year in 2015, is the law, and we will deal with that. We have to move forward with that. The Common Core standards, Illinois Learning Standards, are the law. We're doing our best to make sure that our teachers are teaching our children the way we want them to, and we will continue to move forward on that. Parents are key to our success, and we depend on them, as well as our administrators and our teachers and our superintendent. I think that we run an excellent school district, and we've been very financially responsible. So thank you for your time tonight. I appreciate the invitation to be here.
Without echoing too many comments, I'll agree with Shad down there. We're all Mortonites in the all end, and we're all still working for the same thing. I will still trust him to treat my child when I take him as a pediatrician. But there are different ideas, and when we talked about the specifics of what goes on and the information that you gave, the real thing is you're voting on leadership and where you want the district to go. Over the past 3 years, I've enjoyed it. I've been frustrated with it. It is a lot of time. but it's incredibly rewarding work. Our district is doing a great job, and we're on a pretty steep trajectory up right now, and I would like to keep that going with some of the things we have in the high school going on. What I'd like to say is after this, I'm going to stick around till the last person leaves, because we all know we have opinions, all 7 of us, that you can't quite fit into 2 minutes. That's absolutely for sure. So thank you for coming. It's great meeting a lot of people, even if you disagree with me and stuff like that, and thanks for coming.
Well, again, I appreciate people taking out time to be here. On my 8 years on the board, there's times I think I probably have been known to be a little bit more blunt than what people like. I don't do that to offend people. There's only so many hours in the day. We have a great district. That's what we're striving to keep. When you look at 2/3 of the districts are operating financially in the red, we have to be aware of that. What you're going to be deciding on is who you feel is going to do the best job of listening to you and getting everyone to work together. I'm not here to bully. I listen, and look to see where we have common ground to make things work. I'm going to end it with this quote from Abraham Lincoln. Most men can stand adversity. If you want to test a man's character, give him power. Don't be bullied.
Following up the caboose on this one. So my motto for this election has been strong schools, smart finances, and really, I told you earlier at the beginning that SMART was an acronym, and what it describes the guiding principles for my decision-making process. S stands for sensible. What is the wise, prudent thing to do for our community and our students? M stands for manageable. Is the decisions that we're making right now going to be manageable for future boards? A stands for adaptable. Are we adapting to changing times and equipping our children to succeed, whether it's the workforce, college, entrepreneurship, vocational, all of those things. R is for relentless. Is this decision in line with our relentless pursuit of academic excellence? And then you guys know T is for trustworthiness. And has the process leading to this decision been transparent and built the trust of the community? So that's the process that I'll use. Those are the guiding principles that I'll use. I know all of us have differing opinions, and I'm not afraid to work as a team with all of them. So thank you.